Xander Hall, he's fairly popular on the Twitter sphere. He claimed that Breadtube is dying and the right is thriving on these platforms. I don't have a large amount of respect for Xander Hall's intellect myself, Vaush. I'm just going to be straight up with you. But is he right? I could give you my worldview of why I don't think so. But what do you think?
I think he's right, depending on your definition of Breadtube. The issue that I have right now is that it feels like there are elements of the online left, mostly like the mid to low size like video essayist crowd, who are just are making themselves future victims of the same kind of 2014 era Gamergate skeptic, counter movement that I saw play out like 8 years ago, where you're getting like very insular behavior and unwillingness to engage with or address other communities, and inability to understand other perspectives. The lack of introspection is happening as they close in. In essence, and this sounds very callous, but I do believe this, it's a hug box, it's a bubble, and they're not challenged enough the way they were back in the day, so they retract and they become more arrogant and insular, and as a product of that, they get worse at dealing with external influences. I don't think this is going to affect me, because, not a day goes by without me ramming my head against external forces, but I think there is a big portion of the left that's really opening themselves up to like a really bad backlash, and I don't know if they're ready for that,
So, in your estimation, then engagement's key?
It is. You have to be able to engage with the arguments posed by the other side. If you can't, that's it. Like, you always have to be. If you can't do that, there's no point in you making political content. I'm not saying you have to be able to debate. Debate is a specific skill. But acknowledge what other people believe and respond to it, as opposed to, what are we getting right now? A lot of this stuff being produced in the online left is very insular and a very niche interest. It's of no interest at all unless you're already in the in-group. It's one of the reasons I really like ContraPoints. Every single ContraPoints video is interesting, even if you don't agree, interesting to a pretty broad...
ContraPoints has been on here many, many times.
No, ContraPoints. ContraPoints.
Oh, ContraPoint. I'm sorry.
But no, don't get me wrong. I like CounterPoints too. But yeah, Contra's videos are really. He gets a lot of that too. They're being conflated with Contra because they're names. But Contra's videos are. I think she does a really good job just throwing it out there to a wide audience, and I respect that. I hope that keeps up. I hope that's the energy we get going forward.
Well, what are you going to do? And I'm just going to be completely frank with you. Mm-hmm. The debate skills of guys like Dylan Burns are garbage. Debate skills of guys like Xander Hall are not great. The debate skills of the people who would represent even the moderate socialist movement, as you might call it now, who aren't even breadtubers, are not doing a great job of guarding the wall, as it were. And they seem less and less likely, as they gain more and more clout, to be at the forefront of these types of things. So, what does your side do about that? Is it going to always be the inevitable ebb and flow of the right wing is rearing its ugly head, and so Breadtube must retreat until their day cometh again?
There's always going to be an element of that. I feel like Zan and Dylan's arguments are pretty good. I feel like, if anything, their arguments with the right suffer in some aesthetic senses. They're both pretty young, and I feel like
they're picking boxing matches and fucking boxing.
The issue is, so much of this is optics. If you're like a kind of like kid, like Dylan and Zan are both. It's not just that they're young; they look young. Like, I looked older than they did when I was their age too, and I had a deeper voice, and I carried myself differently. And I feel like even if your arguments are really good, if you're talking with a person who comes off more older and level and calm, that goes a really, really long way in terms of how legitimately other people perceive you. I think with those two, that's a self fixing problem kind of with time, but. In terms of the direction things are going broadly, I think we're still in a better position now than we would have been 8 years ago. But I do think that a backlash is coming. Maybe it's going to come from the TikTok Zoomers, a bunch of 16-year-olds are going to step onto YouTube, stop watching videos deconstructing Hello Neighbor, and start arguing about how trans people are delusional or whatever. I don't know where the angle's going to be. I know it's not going to be from a bunch of 40-year-old British guys, because we've already done Gamergate. It needs to be some new thing is going to happen. I guess I'm just interested to see how it'll play out.
Well, I guess just to dive into that just a bit more to follow up, I guess what I'm after is, do you feel like your gatekeepers are doing a good job? Because from my perspective, I don't feel like they're doing a great job for you. I don't feel like, to be fair, that the dissident rights gatekeepers are doing a very good job either, Vaush, to be honest with you. Once the Trump phenomenon went away, it almost seemed like people just forgot what they were supposed to be talking about, you know?
Yeah,
and now we're in this bizarre situation where the people who are the most popular on what you would consider the socialist left and dissident right, they don't seem to be the greatest gatekeepers for a message anymore.
I think Dylan is... I think that Dylan is limited in a few ways. Mostly, he can't get too dirty because he has external career concerns. You know, he was the youngest senatorial foreign policy advisor in U.S. history. There's a lot of other stuff there. Doing online, like, argument debate shit is, like, really messy work, you know, as I would know. So there might be some sort of conflicting ties there. I actually think Zan has improved a lot recently. I guess, I mean, at the end of the day, I have to hold everyone to my standard, and I think that I'm the best at what I do, of course. I mean, I have to, right?
So do I.
Well, thank you.
I think the same thing.
I appreciate that.
For me, not for you.
Well, yeah, well, you know what? I appreciate your confidence anyway. I know, like, yeah, like, anyone's going to assess themselves by their own standards, and to those standards, sure. I think I do well. I think it's definitely, like, a point to improve. I don't watch that much of their content, though, so maybe they're being cringier than I know. I like what I've seen.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment. I just think that what you would consider the left-wing gatekeepers of just 2 years ago, that the entire conversation has changed into one where we're just not even having a conversation anymore.
It'll come back. I hope we have a different conversation than the ones we were having back in 2017, though, because a lot of those conversations are feeling pretty played out. I don't know. I feel like... I don't know. I wonder if I'm going to be, like, 35 years old and still arguing over, like hormone blockers for trans kids or whatever, you know? Will I be 45 and still talking about, like, whether or not a white ethno-state would be good for this country? Maybe. White ethno-states, like, have been proposed and fought for hundreds of years. Maybe this is just some interminable mind disease that I always have to deal with. I don't know.